The moment Caroline collapsed on the beach, with raindrops still glistening on her flawless skin, Osagie screamed her name so loud that the DJ turned off the music mid-track. She wasn't breathing. Her eyes were open but empty. People gathered, shouting, fanning her, pouring bottled water on her face, thinking it was heat stroke. But nothing worked. Someone shouted, "Let's take her to the hospital." As they lifted her body, Osagie held her hand tightly, begging her to wake up. Only hours earlier, she had danced with joy, her smile lighting up the shoreline. And now, her lifeless body was wheeled into a hospital emergency room. Caroline's parents arrived shortly after, her mother wailing uncontrollably, and her father silent, eyes red, fists clenched. Minutes later, a nurse stepped out and shook her head. "I'm sorry, she didn't make it." Osagie dropped to his knees, his hands on his head. No, 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 no. But she was gone. In the following days, confusion turned to suspicion. Caroline's father blamed Osagie. He refused to believe it was natural. He refused to accept what he knew in his heart. A storm had started, and not just the one in the sky. Caroline was born on a Sunday morning in Calabar, just after a heavy rainfall. Her parents, Chief and Madame Edem, stared at her in silence, neither smiling nor crying. The midwife already knew. She had heard the whispers. The first daughter, during rain season? God help her. You see, in the city of Calabar, the birth of twins used to be seen as a curse. Many years ago, twins were murdered at birth, seen as evil. But one woman had fought back. Her twins were taken and killed by the town's elders. In her pain, she caused the land. Every firstborn girl of any family from that town would be haunted. They would be fragile, yet brilliant. Loved, but never spared. They would die at 27, if even one drop of rain touched their skin. Caroline's parents were wealthy and educated. They didn't believe in curses, at first. But as Caroline grew, the signs began to show. Every time it rained, even slightly, she'd fall sick. Her skin would burn. Her lungs would weaken. They tried every hospital, pastor, and herbalist, but nothing worked. So they prayed, and watched, and waited for the day the clouds would betray them. By age 5, Caroline was already reading novels that confused her teachers. At 9, she was solving mathematical equations meant for university students. And by 15, she had a master's degree in communication from Oxford. The world clapped for her. But at home, her mother wept quietly during every rainfall. Caroline's room had blackout windows, double-sealed curtains, and a generator in case the weather knocked out power. The housekeeper had one job: make sure no rainwater ever touched the girl. Doctors called her illness a mystery. Scientists offered to study her. But her parents declined. It wasn't science. It was a curse. At 16, her parents finally sat her down and told her everything. The curse. The twins. The woman's rage. The rain. Caroline didn't cry. She nodded, quietly. "So I will die if rain touches me?" she asked. Her mother held her hand and whispered, "Not if we can help it." Caroline smiled sadly. "Then I must make the most of this short life." She packed her dreams, her degree, and her hope, and moved to Lagos. To live, to shine, but never to fall in love. In Lagos, Caroline got a job at Galaxy Communications, a leading media house. She became the youngest radio on-air personality in the country, with a voice that could melt granite and a mind sharper than a blade. She interviewed presidents, movie stars, and tech billionaires. Listeners tuned in just to hear her laugh. She was stylish, always elegant, never flashy. She wore gloves when it looked cloudy, carried a UV umbrella in her designer bag, and never stepped outside during rain, no matter the cost. Her fame skyrocketed. She was on billboards, on TV, and in magazines. At 23, she had hosted the AMVCAs, the MTV Video Music Awards Africa, and made Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. Behind the scenes, she was careful. Her assistants were trained to watch the weather. Her drivers knew to detour if clouds threatened. But Caroline was lonely. She smiled in public, but in private, she curled up and stared at the ceiling, wondering how many more years she had left. And then came Osagie, the man who would change everything. The man she should have run from, but didn't. Osagie was music's wild flame. Born in Benin, raised in Lagos, he had swagger, talent, and trouble on speed dial. His songs were hits, his concerts explosive, and his reputation dangerous. Women adored him. Men wanted to be him. But he was reckless. Drugs, alcohol, women, fights. When Caroline was told she'd be interviewing him on her Friday show, she rolled her eyes. Why him? But the moment he walked into the studio, tattooed, grinning, with dark sunglasses and confidence dripping like honey, Caroline felt her heart beat twice in 1 second. He flirted. She laughed. He challenged her. She answered sharply. They debated, laughed, teased, and when the interview ended, Osagie whispered, "You're not like the rest." Caroline smiled politely and said, "Neither are you." That night, her phone buzzed. A text from Osagie, "Rain or shine, I want to see you again." She stared at the message for minutes. Her thumb hovered over the screen. And then she typed, "Let's see how long your interest lasts." But even she didn't know. It would cost them everything. Osagie was like a storm. Loud, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. And Caroline, despite her careful life, let him in. At first, she kept him at a distance. Dates were indoors, tightly controlled. Her umbrella followed her like a bodyguard. She never spent the night at his house, and he was never allowed near her during rainfall. Osagie didn't ask too many questions at first. He was too dazzled. Caroline wasn't like the other women he knew. She was powerful, yet soft. Gentle, but commanding. And when she laughed, it felt like a reward. The media soon caught on. Osagie and Caroline, love or publicity stunt, headlines screamed. But they didn't care. Behind the scenes, something real was blooming. He called her sunshine. She called him storm. She made him slow down, drink less, cancel wild parties, spend more time in the studio. And slowly, Osagie changed. For the first time, he was serious with a woman. And Caroline, she started letting go. A little too much. She drank wine, danced at his parties, started spending nights at his home, even ignored the weather report sometimes. For a woman whose life depended on the rain, Caroline had begun to act like it no longer mattered. And that was dangerous. Caroline's best friend, Edem, noticed the change first. "This isn't you, Caro," she said over brunch one day. "You're slipping. You know what's at stake." Caroline twirled her glass of juice, avoiding her gaze. "Edem, I'm tired. I've lived like a prisoner all my life. For once, I just want to be normal, happy. But at what cost?" Edem pressed. "You used to be cautious. Now you're outside during cloudy weather. Last week, I saw you without gloves." Caroline smiled sadly. "I'm in love. Maybe love is worth the risk. But is he worth your life?" Caroline paused, eyes suddenly misty. "I haven't told him, Edem, about the curse, about the rain." Edem gasped. "You've been dating for over a year, and you haven't told him." "I was going to. I just kept delaying. Every time I look into his eyes, I can't bring myself to say it. He won't understand." Edem leaned forward. "You're playing with fire, and the clouds are always watching." But Caroline shook her head. "I'll tell him. On my birthday. I'll tell him everything." The problem was, the rain never waits for permission. Preparations for Caroline's 25th birthday were massive. She didn't want a big party, but Osagie had other plans. "You've worked too hard," he said. "Let the world celebrate you for once." He insisted on a beach party, private, secure, with only close friends and industry elites. She agreed, reluctantly. Her parents were uneasy. "What if it rains?" her mother asked. I'll check the weather hourly, Caroline assured. Besides, it's the dry season. The guest list was small. Just 100 people. Osagie would perform a special set for her. Everything was going to be perfect. But that morning, Caroline woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. A heaviness. She looked out the window. The sun was bright, no clouds in sight. Still, something inside her whispered, "Don't go." But she brushed it off, wore her golden dress, tied her hair up, slipped on her perfume, and smiled at her reflection. "Today," she told the mirror, "I will tell him." And as she stepped into the car heading to the beach, somewhere miles above, a cloud shifted. A tiny one, enough to write her fate. The beach was glowing. White tents flapped in the ocean breeze. Fairy lights twinkled under the setting sun. Celebrities mingled. Cameras flashed. Osagie arrived in a white linen shirt, barefoot, with a guitar strapped on his back. He walked straight to Caroline, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Happy birthday, sunshine." She blushed. "Tonight, I'll tell you everything," she said. Osagie raised an eyebrow. "Everything." "Everything," she repeated. She meant to tell him before his performance. But laughter got in the way. And cake. And pictures. And toasts. Then, the crowd roared as Osagie took the stage. He dedicated a new song to her, one he had never performed publicly. It was raw, emotional, and hauntingly beautiful. Caroline stood there, swaying to the rhythm, eyes moist, heart full. And then, a drizzle. It came without warning. A quiet shower that lasted just 7 minutes. Caroline, distracted, didn't notice. Her skin did. It absorbed every cust droplet. The moment Osagie stepped off stage, the drizzle had already stopped. The sun was still out, casting a golden glow over the beach. Caroline ran into his arms, lips trembling with joy and love. They kissed, and then her body sagged. Her knees buckled. She collapsed. Screams pierced the evening air. "She's fainting," someone shouted. Osagie knelt beside her, shaking her gently. "Caroline? Caro? Baby, wake up." Her lips moved slightly. A whisper. "I told you, I would tell you everything." Then, silence. Panic set in. Someone called an ambulance. CPR began. Her pulse was fading fast. By the time she reached the hospital, her breathing had stopped. Her skin, once glowing, had turned pale. The doctors tried everything, but it was too late. Caroline Edem was pronounced dead at 8:47 p.m. on her 25th birthday, and the curse had done its job. The news broke the next morning. Africa's beloved OAP, Caroline Edem, dies at 25. People wept. Social media drowned in tribute posts. TV stations aired her old interviews. Magazines rushed to print her final photos. Lagos stood still. But in Calabar, Caroline's father, Chief Edem, locked himself in his room and didn't come out for 2 days. When he finally did, he looked like a ghost. He had always known this day might come, but not like this. Not with the world watching. Not with his daughter collapsing in a stranger's arms. He blamed himself. Then he blamed Osagie. In his grief and rage, he hired a lawyer. "That boy ruined my daughter," he said. He made her reckless, introduced her to a wild lifestyle. He destroyed her. Osagie was devastated. He hadn't eaten in days. He replayed that birthday night in his head over and over again. What did she mean when she said, "I told you I'd tell you everything"? What was she hiding? But he never got the answer. Instead, police officers showed up at his door. He was arrested for negligence, drug influence, and complicity in suspicious death. The headlines changed. Osagie, the musician who killed Africa's sweetheart. Osagie's bail was denied. The court ordered a toxicology report. Caroline's father insisted she had never touched alcohol or drugs before meeting Osagie. He changed her. She was pure before him. Fans were divided. Some believed Osagie was innocent, a grieving man being punished unfairly. Others accused him of ruining a gem. Meanwhile, in her home, Caroline's mother sat in her daughter's room every night, holding her last voice note. In it, Caroline had said, "Mum, I'm happy. I think he's the one. I know my time is short, but I want to love fully before the clouds take me." The note never reached Osagie. During the trial, he refused to speak in court. His eyes were dead. He wasn't fighting to be free. He was already broken. The judge called the case tragic and circumstantial. But the evidence stacked up. Photos of Caroline partying. Videos of her dancing with a wine glass. Her sudden change in behavior. Osagie's wild past. It all painted a perfect story. A lie that looked like truth. 10 years. That was the sentence. Osagie stood quietly as the gavel hit the bench. The courtroom gasped. Reporters scribbled. Cameras flashed. Osagie didn't flinch. He had been sentenced to a decade in prison for contributing to the lifestyle and influence that led to the tragic death of Caroline Edem. His mother fainted. His manager screamed. But Osagie simply bowed his head. Caroline's father, watching from the gallery, felt no joy, only emptiness. Deep down, he knew Osagie was innocent. He had seen how his daughter looked at him. She loved him. He wasn't the cause. The curse was. But admitting that would mean admitting he was powerless. He would rather punish a man than face the truth. Meanwhile, the world slowly moved on. Caroline's legacy became legendary. Awards were named after her. Foundations were launched in her honor. Celebrities praised her. But Osagie rotted in silence, counting every rainy day that passed. 3 years into his prison sentence, Osagie received a visitor. It was Caroline's mother. She had aged terribly. Her once rich skin was dull. Her steps were slow. She sat across from him in the visitation room and whispered, "I'm sorry." Osagie looked up, hollow-eyed. "Why are you here?" She placed a small diary on the table. This was Caroline's. She wrote everything. He hesitated, then opened it. Page after page of her handwriting. Her thoughts. Her fears, her dreams, her love for him, and finally, an entry that explained everything. "Mum says if rain touches my skin, I will die. It's a curse. They've tried everything, but I don't want to live in fear. I want to live in love, even if just for a little while." Osagie's hands trembled. "She didn't tell me," he said, tears falling. "She wanted to. She planned to, on her birthday," her mother replied, wiping her eyes. "You weren't the reason she died. The rain was." Osagie stood up slowly, rage and grief crashing in him like waves. "Then why did he send me here?" She looked down. Because he loved her too much, and didn't know who else to blame. The truth was now in Osagie's hands, but the damage had already been done. His career was gone. His reputation had been shattered. Fans had abandoned him. Labels dropped him. Yet, something changed in him. Reading Caroline's diary gave him purpose again. He began writing songs in prison. Songs about love, pain, curses, and loss. The prison staff sometimes overheard him humming late into the night. It echoed through the cell blocks like ghost music. Meanwhile, Caroline's mother tried to convince her husband to reverse the charges. But Chief Edem was stubborn. "It's done. Nothing can bring her back." "You already took her from him," she whispered. "Don't take the rest of his life too." But he refused. And so, Osagie served time, not for guilt, but because of grief. And outside the prison walls, the rain kept falling. By the 6th year of his sentence, Osagie had become a ghost in the industry, but not in memory. An anonymous account began releasing songs online. Deep, sorrowful tracks about love, death, betrayal, and rain. The voice was unmistakable. Fans whispered, "That's Osagie." The songs gained attention. Young people connected to the pain. Rumors spread like wildfire. Osagie is still making music from behind bars. His lyrics talk about a woman cussed by rain. Maybe Caroline's death wasn't what we thought. Soon, journalists began to dig. One brave reporter traced the anonymous uploads to a prison IP address. Then he did something others hadn't. He read Caroline's diary, leaked by someone close to the family. The truth began to spread online. #JusticeForOsagie started trending. Even those who once judged him began to question everything. Still locked behind bars, Osagie had no idea. He was just trying to survive the weight of his heartbreak. Caroline's father tried to ignore the noise. He avoided social media, turned off the TV, buried himself in work. But everywhere he went, he saw his daughter's face. On murals, on magazine covers, in university halls named after her. And now, people were pointing fingers. You sent an innocent man to jail. He didn't kill her. The curse did. The rain took her, not him. He snapped one morning, threw his phone across the room and shouted, "She was my child. I had the right to protect her memory." But the truth couldn't be silenced. And one day, Caroline's mother stood in front of him, holding Osagie's prison song lyrics. "This is what your pride did." He broke. He wept like a child, and whispered, "I just wanted someone to blame." But sometimes, the storm comes from inside. 8 years after Caroline's death, her story was adapted into a stage play in London. It was titled The Girl Who Couldn't Touch Rain. Tickets sold out for months. Critics called it a masterpiece of African tragedy and love. In Nigeria, Caroline's fan base only grew. Documentaries were made. Schools taught her life story. She became a symbol of brilliance, of sacrifice, and of silence. And finally, the pressure became too loud. Chief Edem called a press conference. He stood before cameras and confessed, "I, Chief Edem, falsely accused Osagie of causing my daughter's death. The truth is, Caroline suffered from a family curse that we kept hidden for years. The rain killed her, not him. And for that, I ask for forgiveness." It was national news. Osagie's lawyers filed for an appeal. The court reviewed the new evidence. And 10 months later, Osagie walked out of prison. But he didn't smile. The crowd outside the prison gate cheered. Cameras flashed. Journalists pushed microphones in his face. "Osagie, how do you feel?" But Osagie just walked. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. He headed straight to the cemetery in Calabar. Alone. It was raining lightly that day. He stood under a black umbrella, staring at her gravestone. Caroline Edem, 1998 to 2023. Beloved daughter. Radiant light. He sat beside the grave and pulled out a letter from her diary. "If you're reading this after I'm gone, please know, I never meant to hurt you. I was just scared. I loved you more than life, but life was always running out for me. Forgive me." Osagie broke down. No fans, no guards, no flashing lights. Just a man, soaked in grief and drizzle, whispering apologies into the soil. Osagie never returned to the music scene, not in the way the world hoped. Instead, he opened a foundation in Caroline's name, funding research into rare genetic conditions and supporting young girls from Calabar who suffered mysterious illnesses during the rainy season. He refused interviews, never recorded another album. But every year on her birthday, he dropped one song. Just one. Raw, stripped down, and painfully beautiful. Always under the same title, Sunshine in the Rain. Each track ended the same way, with the sound of soft rainfall and Osagie whispering her name. The world eventually moved on. But not him. Because when you truly love someone cussed by time, you never stop hearing the rain. And you never stop waiting for a day when it won't take them away.